But anyway, so let's get started. Hi everybody, my name is Mary Janus, and this is Austyn Myers.
Hi.
And this is wonderful applause from me and from everybody who's virtually here and not virtually here at the moment. As you all know, we've been doing this series now for 2 months. 4 people. This is our grand finale. And I know a lot of you have rehearsals, so thank you for joining us later. And I have some of your questions right here, so I promise I'll ask them. Okay, so here's a little bit about Austyn. Austyn is amazing. He is an actor, he's a singer, he's a dancer, he directs, he is an artistic director of his own theater company. He's done tours, he's done movies, he's done shows that I'm sure some of you have seen because they've been at the Old Globe and La Jolla Playhouse. So, without further ado, Austyn Myers!
Hi.
Then, tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry and your childhood.
Oh gosh. How I got into the industry is such a weird story. I love it, but it's not something that I can be like, follow these things and you'll get into the industry, because like a lot of people tell the whole like, oh, this happened and then I got bit by the theater bug. And for some reason the theater bug just like got bit by me or something. Like it just pursued me hard until I was like, oh, I want to do theater. I get it. Because it started because I was just a kid who was really into like, you know, playing pretend and dressing up like all kids are. And I was really into Peter Pan. And then one year at my elementary school, I was in like 2nd grade. The school play was Peter Pan. And I marched on into the principal's office and I was like, hi, I'm going to be playing Peter Pan. And it didn't happen. I didn't play Peter Pan, but I did play Michael Darling, which was really fun. And I had a great time. And it was never anything more to me than, you know, I'm getting to be in Peter Pan. It's my favorite story. But some of the other, some of my friends who were in that, their mom saw the show and went up to my mom and was like, you know, Austyn's like really good. The kids do youth theater. Come and join. Austyn should audition, and so I did. And I auditioned. I got into a youth theater production of Les Miserables. I played Little Gavroche, and then I did a couple more shows. And then some of the like high school students who were in Les Mis with me went up to my mom and the same thing. We're like, Austyn's a really good Gavroche. We're auditioning for some Les Mis thing up in LA. We don't really know what it is, but come and audition. And so my mom honestly went, great, Austyn, we're going to Disneyland anyways. We're gonna stop, we're gonna go up to LA and you're gonna sing your Gavroche song and then we're gonna go to Disneyland.
Sing your Gavroche song.
Yeah, you know, I'm just gonna sing the Gavroche song. And I go up and I have no idea what I'm auditioning for. I'm like far too forward. I don't know any of the like audition etiquette or anything. And I go in and I do my audition. My favorite thing was that like the producer of the show, which I didn't know what it was, happened to be there. And he was like, all right, sing it again, but sing it like I'm Javert and you're doing whatever you can to get me to look at you. And, you know, like acting intentions, like, you know, like be really dramatic and force me to look at you. And little, 9-year-old Austyn goes, oh, okay, got it. And I go and I grab his jaw and I force him to look at me and I sing the rest of my song to him. And then 4 months later, I get a call and I'm cast in the national tour of Les Mis. Like, I'm not suggesting that you guys go and do that, but it, ever since then, it was theater's really fun. And I think it's because I had such like young introduction to theater that I grew up with the understanding of like, oh, when you want to have the audience get this feeling, you do this thing. You like this type of music shift, this lighting change. Like my eyes, because I was looking at it from so young, which I'm assuming a lot of you guys are getting into this really young, which is awesome. You know, keep getting into that, keep learning from it is, I think, what helped me not only be a really good actor, but eventually to have that eye as a director. Yeah, that's my, like, how did you get into this story?
I've never heard that, and I love it. Yes.
It honestly was just a bunch of being in the right place at the right time, because after the national tour, they closed that to revive it on Broadway, and they called me like a month after we closed the tour saying, hey, we're not happy with the kids doing Gavroche. Can you come up for like a month, rehearse with us until we open? And I like did all of the previews as Gavroche. So that's how I got my Broadway credit. Like from that, I met people who were like, oh, when you go back home, go see my agent in LA. And that's how I got my first agent. You know, it was like a lot of just being really blessed and being really lucky to be where I was. But also a lot of hard work. So.
Just because I love this story. So what were some of the like odd stories from when you were on tour? Like, what are some duties that Gavroche had to do that you just had to do?
I think I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the other
that you
role
might not expect?
like the other role that I had to play? Yeah, okay, this was fun. I still have photos from this. Did I show you these? I think I did.
Yes. Yes. So keep in mind, everybody, for those of you who don't know Les Mis, there's only 3 children in Les Mis.
And we traveled with
children. Cosette.
Kids. So there's 2 little girls who are on stage every night, right? And then there's one. So we have 2 girls and 2 boys traveling.
That's the 3 characters.
Right. So that the Gavroches, we would switch off every night. So there were 8 shows a week, and we would each only do 4. But the little girls, one would be Cosette, and that's the only one that sings. The other one would be little Eponine, would run on stage, wouldn't say anything, but she would be on stage a grand total of like maybe a minute. And she would be there, and she would like cradle her dolly, and then she would stick her tongue out at Cosette when her mom wasn't looking. And so because there were only 2 of them, like if one of the Gavroches gets sick, the other one just does the shows. But if one of the little girls gets sick, what do? This is what you do. The other little girl plays Cosette. Austyn throws on a long blonde wig, a blue straw bonnet, and a like big old girly dress, and runs out on stage. And one of the girls was sick for an entire week. So there were shows where I had to just be Eponine, and there were other shows where I was Eponine with my Gavroche costume on underneath. And I would run out, be Eponine, play with my dolly, stick my tongue out, run back. They would take off my wig, take off my dress, put dirt on me, put my hat on, and I would run on stage as Gavroche like that. Like it was really fast, but it was really fun.
The show must go on, everybody. The show must go on, and you learn that at a young age.
Yeah, so many funny things that happen. And it's like, well, what are we gonna do? I guess we're gonna keep going. One of the nights, Grantaire, who is one of the characters, he's like the teacher of the students, but he's there with them, and he's like a drunk, so he always has this big old bottle. And one of the nights when our Javert ran off, he knocked over this bottle, and so we all just hear shattered glass. Everything stops, everyone looks off stage, and we all just see Javert, who's like, and every time Grantaire had to like salute with his bottle, he had to like reference it, he sang about it, and so he would just like grab a different bottle and be like, I guess this is the one now. Doesn't say Grantaire, but yeah, so.
Here's my bottle now. So when you got back from New York, what happened then? You got your agent, and you were in middle school by then?
Yeah, middle school was interesting. That's when things slowed down a little bit, because I got my agent and I started trying to do a lot more film stuff. And to do that, I was drive from San Diego up to LA about 3 times a week. Like, and either I would know that I had the audition and clear it with my teachers, or my mom would show up while I was hanging out with my friends at lunch, and I would be like, well, sorry everyone,
go, bye.
Cancel, tell me what I missed in school. And if I found out at my like graduation ceremony that if I missed one more day of middle school, I wouldn't have been able to graduate, just because I was going up and down the coast. Yeah, but it's funny, before going up that times, I only did a couple of things. I did a TV show pilot. I did some TV episodes. I did a commercial. I was in a feature film. That was exciting. I was in an Eddie Murphy film called Meet Dave. I got to save the world. Yeah, and that was really cool. But that was at 11. I filmed that. And then after that, I came home and I started doing stuff. I realized that I just really loved theater. I didn't love the film process as much.
Can you explain the difference between those two processes for those of us who only have theater experience? What's the difference between filming a movie and being an actor in a movie and being in a show?
Right. Well, I can't speak for being like a director of a movie, which is very different, but being an actor in a movie means that you have a lot less control over your character. Like, you get a lot less say in who your character is, because when you guys are in shows, you know, you get to start from the rehearsal process. You have a lot of time before anyone sees any of the work that you do in your character, right? You get to learn who that is. You get to learn what their whole arc is, their whole journey. And when you perform the show, you like start at the beginning, and then you go through all of the middle stuff that changes them, and then you get to the end. And by the end, your character is either in a different spot, better, you know, but you've had that full arc. You've been able to like live in the life of your character. And when you're filming a movie, it can't go that way because it's not cost effective, because you don't get to film on the same space. You know, you don't get to film every scene in the same location, unlike when you're doing theater and it's all in the same stage. And so when you film, like, we started in my bedroom in the movie, and then there were a bunch of middle scenes in the house also in my bedroom, and then we ended with a scene in my bedroom. And so we had to film all of that before we could go anywhere else. And my character goes to the Statue of Liberty, the police station, like all of these different places, right? And I wasn't able to, as an actor, like get how any of those experiences like changed where I am at the end. And so a lot of character development all lands on the director, and the director having an idea of exactly what he wants that arc to be for every character. So it's a lot more control on the director and a lot more work on the director. And so what you'll do as an actor is you'll go into a scene, and instead of keep rehearsing it until you get it the right, perfect way, someone who I actually think said it really well was Keanu Reeves, is that when Keanu Reeves goes into filming a scene for a movie, he's not trying, like, he goes in and goes, all right, I think my character in this scene is red. And the director goes, all right, give me this shade of red. So like this time, give me a red that's a little bit more purple. This time, give me a red that's a little bit more orange. This time, give me like, you want to do as many versions of the scene as possible so that when they're in the editing room, they can go, oh, well, because this scene happened beforehand that we filmed afterwards, that means that we should go with take number 17 of this. So as an actor in film, you want to just give as many different options, as many different ranges of emotion as possible, so that whereas as opposed to in theater, you want to figure out beforehand exactly what that is so that you can recreate it every night for the audience. And I liked being able to have the control. I still really like being able to have the control of being able to mold my own character and being able to like live their journey. Like there was a show that I did where none of the characters left the stage, and we would like not be in the scene, but we would sit on the edges of the stage watching everything, and we would still be like going through our day, and having that type of experience where you get to like see every moment that your character has from beginning to end is incredible, and you don't get to have that in film. So that's the long-winded explanation I have of why I prefer.
That is, I could not have put it any better. I am 100% on your side. I like the arc. I don't like just being dropped into things. But granted, I'm not a prep person either. So, but there's those differences. There's a lot of stop go. It's a lot of where am I, when am I, what just happened.
Right.
And there's a lot of waiting in film for those of you who want to know the difference. There's a lot of waiting around in film because there's a lot more components that have to get like reset between each take.
Right. And I also find, interestingly, that film engages a lot less imagination. And something that, because I think I started from so young, acting has always been about imagination and not about the real and the tangible to me. And so I think that, you know, when you're watching a movie, every scene that happens on a pirate ship has to be on a pirate ship. You know, it can't be like in theater where, you know, when I did Peter and the Starcatcher, our entire pirate ship was a rope and a flag, but the audience got it. You know, we didn't have to build an actual pirate ship for them. And so I think that being able to engage with the audience's imagination in the same way that your imagination is engaging is already a way to connect that you don't get in film.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. A+. Okay, so you were now in high school and you're considering what you want to do next in life.
Right. Through high school, that's when I started doing a lot more theater as an actor locally. I did a couple of shows at the Old Globe. I did the Neil Simon shows, Brighton Beach Memoir and Broadway Bound. And then I did October Sky, which is a new musical based on a movie. And then I did a new show called Kingdom City at the La Jolla Playhouse. And when I was doing that, when I was doing Kingdom City, I ran into Scott Schwartz, who directed me in the two shows I did at the Old Globe, in Brighton Beach Memoirs and Broadway Bound. And we reconnected. He was there directing a new show. He was actually directing The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Because to give credence to who this guy is, he was involved in theater forever. His dad wrote the music for Godspell and Pippin and Wicked and Hunchback of Notre Dame. And so he was there directing that and working with his dad when we reconnected. And it's funny, I worked with him first when I was 13, but he said, Austyn, have you ever thought of directing? Because he thought that I had the eye for it. And I was like, honestly, no, I hadn't had the thought of like, can I direct this? You know, I want to direct this, but I essentially had all of the other thoughts without having that of like, I want to do this show in this space in this way, and I want this person to play it, and I want this, and I would block the whole thing, choreograph the whole thing, but I was never like, I'm going to direct it. So I don't know why that was missing there. But Scott offered me the chance to come and work for him. I was, for one summer, I was his intern up at Bay Street Theater. This was, what summer was this? It was whatever summer Hamilton opened. It was 2014 or
2014.
14. Okay, so 6 years ago, I went and Yeah, it would be exactly 6 years ago because this was before I started college. I went and I was his intern, his directing intern at his theater in New York State, up in the Hamptons in Sag Harbor, called Bay Street Theater. And it was a little, like 200, maybe 300 seat theater, so pretty small. And they did like 3 big shows a summer with some cabarets and comedy shows sprinkled in between. But I got to assistant direct all 3 of the shows, and I would, one of my jobs was I would like read all of the new play submissions, and I would give the green light of like, this one's good, I wouldn't look at this one. And I got to work under Scott, and one of the cool things from that was that I got to not only see what it was like to be a director, but see what it was like to be an artistic director. I got like both of those experiences because Scott didn't direct any of these shows that summer. So I got to work under the directors for each of the shows as their assistant. And I also got to be, I was like Scott's personal intern. So I got to help him with his duties daily. And I got to see what short-term goals were for artistic directors. But I think one of the big things that I learned there was like what long-term goals are for artistic directors and what you're trying to do when you're building a season, and what to do when you're like learning what your audience likes versus what you like. And that was a really interesting thing that I learned because Scott had this big idea for a show that he wanted to do. He wanted to do a version of Midsummer Night's Dream that was all around the theater and that was turned into a musical, and big spectacle production with like Norm Lewis's Oberon and like this big thing. And so once he started telling me this, I realized that every single thing that we had worked on that summer had in some way opened his audience's mind to a certain aspect of that. When we did Grey Gardens, which was our big musical, we had the good portions of the show not just take place on stage, it also took place up on the balcony or like within the audience, where people would enter through the audience. And that was because he wanted the audience to like be able to move around and have an immersive experience with it. He had Norm Lewis come and be one of the lead singers when we did our summer gala, because our summer gala was that we performed the first act of the brand new Prince of Egypt musical, which hadn't been written yet. And Norm Lewis came and was Jethro in that. And so that was to open their mind to that. And so like seeing the ways that if you have a big idea for something, one of the most important things that you can do is not just be excited about it yourself, but find the ways to get other people excited about it, was one of the most valuable lessons that I learned from that whole thing. And I came back going, oh, I want to be a director. And I think I want to be an artistic director. And so suddenly I came back and I applied to all of these different schools for directing programs. And that's when I went to UCSD, and I got the opportunity to direct a bunch of shows there. The biggest one was definitely the musical that I did, which was Jesus Christ Superstar. It was fun.
It's one of the best Jesus Christ Superstars I've ever seen. It was really good.
It was really cool. It was my first time directing like a huge musical, and it was stressful. Like I definitely slept in the theater one night during tech. Me and my were like nailing in, screwing in parts of the set while the curtains were closed and audience was coming in on opening night. But it all happened, and it all went up and was a massive success. So yeah, I was very pleased. And I learned, it's funny, I've always loved...
Austyn, your visual's gone away. There we go. Now you're back.
Oh, sorry about that. I've always loved theater, and I've always loved, acting. But there are a bunch of like other quirky parts of me that I never really knew what to do with. I'm trying to think of what some of the specific ones are. But when I started directing, I was like, oh, this is why I do that. It's because I'm a director. Like, this is why I'll just stop and listen to songs that, like, the same 30 seconds of a song and try and visualize something to it. It's because of like all of the weird little bits of my personality that I didn't fully understand why I have them came into play with this. And then that led directly into me and your project together.
Yeah, which was amazing and a wonderful experience, and is leading to other more amazing, wonderful things. So why don't you tell them about what happened after college?
Yeah, okay. Well, this is actually really funny. We haven't actually had the opportunity to
Gotcha.
talk this.
Yeah.
I had this realization, which is that we'll get to this in the story, but Mary, Hunchback was supposed to be happening in April.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
We really lucked out that we decided not to do it in April.
We looked for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you the first reason that I personally lucked out was that my track, like always, my track since I started college was like, get through college, move to New York, you know? And if I did that, then in a year ago, I would have moved to New York, and I would have just been starting to put down roots there and maybe getting out of debt when all of this would have happened. And man, you could not pay me enough to go to New York right now. But
nope.
I lucked out. But the only reason that I didn't end up going was because Notre Dame Cathedral burnt down. And when Notre Dame Cathedral burnt down, I had like a bunch of emotions. I was sad because I had never been able to go see it. I was upset because I was never going to be able to go see it. And that story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame had always been very important to me. And Mary and
you and I first like bonded
over. We met at
we talked, I think, for a good 3 hours.
Or at least, like,
at the least, about just Hunchback.
Like, I'm seeing Giants in the Sky, and I was like, no, I can't. Me and Mary are having a really in-depth conversation about how we would direct the Hunchback of Notre Dame if we ever got the chance. And I had with a couple of other people. I had that with my roommate Cody, and we went through like all of the score, and he went, oh, I would tone all of this down, have the instruments be played by the actors in certain moments, and like had all of this really cool ideas. Me and my friend Gerardo Flores, who I worked at Legoland with as an actor, he and I went to Disneyland one day, and like for a while we were like going through the different things that you try and find to talk about while waiting in line for roller coasters. And then we started going through like, what's your favorite Disney movie? We got to Hunchback, and the same thing as you and I, like we just talked for hours. And so by the end of the day, when on April 15th or 16th or whatever it was that the cathedral had burnt down, I had made a phone call to you. I had made a phone call to all of my roommates who we had talked about starting a theater company with. I had made a phone call to my friend Jerry. I made a phone call to my friend Nathan and got him to call MTI to get us the rights. I made a phone call to my friend Jeremy, who has—
He's very proactive.
I was just suddenly like, why am I waiting? Like we had all of these plans, but I realized like I'm in the city that I love, where I can do a bunch of the type of theater that I want to do, which, I guess I should say that. Living Light Theater, which is theater that Mary and I are a part of, we do the theater that we started ourselves, it do sex-specific theater. And so we do theater that's not in a building. Like we try and find a really cool area to be able to do theater. And I when I was at Bay Street, having my
Tiffany.
my oh, I want to be a director, and came to my roommates every day, because all of the interns, all 9 of us, lived in one house, and I would bust down the door every day, be like, all right, I have an idea. Sweeney Todd, but it's in a pizzeria. Burst in the door. Okay, how about this? Godspell, but it's in Balboa Park. And every time I would bring up a different idea for a show, it would be somewhere in San Diego. And I remember there was a really interesting moment where one of the interns said, Austyn, I think San Diego is holding you back. And I was like, why?
Holding you back.
Well, like every single idea that you have is based in San Diego. And if you just keep doing theater that's meant for San Diego, you will never get to New York. And I was like, well, what's wrong with San Diego? And so that's when Notre Dame burned down, I think that was just like the push that we all needed.
I think so.
Now is the right time to do this. We're not going to be able to do it any better when we're older. We're not going to be, did we have a lot of snags that we had to learn how to handle along the way?
Yes. We were learning everything along the way.
We learned how to make theater from scratch along the way. But I think for the better, because that means that we didn't know a lot of the things that we shouldn't be doing. So we didn't know oh, this is really hard if you do it that way. We're like, let's just try it this way.
Let's just try it.
And we got it first try. And so if we got the rights for January, which was my idea.
Because on the 6th of January.
Exactly, because that's when that's when the Feast of Fools.
That's when the whole thing happens.
Right. Originally, Notre Dame didn't burn down. It caught fire in April, and we were like, "Let's do the show this summer."
Yeah, we were looking at August, I think.
We were very ambitious. We ended up not too far away from that, honestly. As soon as we heard
September was our.
Yeah, as soon as we heard that we got the rights, we did a workshop of the first act in September.
Late September.
Yeah, so
and that was very successful.
It was really successful. We got a lot of people to come. We did the entire first act of a musical, and not an easy musical either. And we did it with the 6 leads, the 3 gargoyles, and 16 people in a choir?
Not even. Not even.
We're so.
I wasn't. To give you an idea, guys, I wasn't supposed to be in it, and last minute I was in it. But it came together, and it was beautiful.
A really clear example. Our first and only run through was our invited dressed in front of our audience.
Yeah.
Run it, and for that, which is terrifying, and you as an actor should never be expected to perform without getting a run through. But with that, somehow we got through it and we did it. And we had so many great, we got so much great help from so many people who came out and were excited by what we had to show and wanting to support local theater. And then in January, we did the show. We did the entire show.
Tell them my favorite part. Where did we do the show?
Oh, yeah.
What made it so cool?
Right. We didn't just do the Hunchback of Notre Dame, because anyone could do that, right? No, we did it
too easy.
on campus at USD, Mary's alma mater. And at the church on campus where I was baptized. So we had enough.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We had enough connections to the school, to the church, that I think they were like, all right, we wouldn't do this for anybody, but let's see what happens. We performed it outside of the church, kitty corner with the church on one side.
And this isn't just a church. It's this gorgeous with a giant tower and turrets and.
It's almost a cathedral, and it has on it, right underneath where our stage was, this huge, beautiful bell tower that is the highest point in San Diego, not county, but city. Yeah. So there was a point where we were up there, and I had to be in the show. I was in the ensemble, but I got to be the one who would go up, and I was Quasimodo's stand-in. I had like a wig and a shawl that I put on and a cauldron. But I had to run all the way up the stairs, and on opening night, it was so cool when I was up there because I like threw down the fake molten lead that we had from, I don't even know how high up this thing was, but it was very high. I don't want to know. Yeah, please don't look it up.
Stories high.
Oh man. But so after I would throw stuff off of the top of this bell tower, the opening night, I had a thought. I was like, why would you do this? You can't go any higher than this, literally. Like you can't surpass this height for a show. So, but it was so fun. It was so cool to be able to have the vision for that. And looking back, like at least 75% of what we talked about at our initial brainstorm sessions, because we started meeting once a week in April, and I'd say at least 75% of the things that we wanted to do happened. And that's crazy.
That is not normal, everybody. Normally, things have to get changed right and left. But yeah, we lucked out.
And I think I think that something that I learned from that was that we established a really good team.
Yeah.
You know, we put like a really good team together that when I was doing Superstar, it was a lot of fun, but I think it was a lot of work because everyone would always look to me as the director, you know, and that's what I expected. But I would not like delegate enough. People would go, Austyn, someone needs to do this. And I would be like, well, it's on me if it doesn't happen, so I'll go do it. And I felt like I was finally comfortable enough with the people I was working with that I was able to let go of a lot of that responsibility and a lot of those reins and go, okay, Becca, I need you to do this. Mary, I need you to do this. Cody, I need you to do this. And we were able to like all collectively, you know, not
Somehow we managed it. Somehow we managed it.
Somehow we did it. That's amazing.
Yeah. And there's so many different components that go into it. There's people on the front end, there's people on the back end, and that was my first time sort of really experiencing that, and that was it was an invaluable opportunity. So I saw, for those of you who don't know, I wasn't able to actually see the show after a year of preparing for it because of a family death, but I got to see the videos, and it looked just as beautiful and wonderful as I had hoped it would.
I also didn't get to see the show because
you were in it.
I was in it. And it's actually funny. I think because I had to jump in it, and Jerry, who is my assistant director, also had to jump in it. Like we had people that just had to like flip around roles wise. And because of that, I had to let go of a lot of things in directing. And there was something that was actually really nice about that, because I looked at the video and I was like, ooh, I didn't know this was happening. I would have changed this. But I couldn't, because we had 3 days to tech it and like a month to really rehearse. And I wasn't able to see half the stuff because I was on stage, you know? And I think that offered a lot of freedom to me and the rest of the cast that I was suddenly in to be like, all right, guys, we're making this show ourselves. And because we did it that way, everyone felt ownership over it. Everyone felt
very alive.
Yeah.
It was very alive.
Like opening night, the most things went wrong, but it was the best show because it had just that energy of we've run this as a whole once without stopping. And this audience is in for a treat. And we are in for a treat. You know, because we knew the show was really good. We just had to do it.
Yeah. Okay, we have to move on to questions. We have to open up the forum. So for those of you who are here, who would like to ask questions, type them into the chat.
It doesn't die. Cool?
What?
I'm going to plug in my phone so it doesn't die. So I'm going to disappear.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Don't die on us. So if any of you guys have questions, type it into the chat box. I have a few here from people who are going to be here later. Let's start with actually one of those. So one of my students wanted to ask you, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so one of my students who's in rehearsals right now wanted to ask, you have many different kinds of credits on your resume. How do you balance an acting career, directing career, and run a theater? How do you find that balance in life?
Oof, that's something that I'm still definitely learning. And it's honestly something that I don't think I fully know how to do yet. Because honestly, when I was in school, a lot of people would look at my resume and just want to have me work on their projects as actors. And I felt like I could have done a really good job. I could have done really good work. But personally, I didn't feel like that's where I was going to get the most growth. And so I had to turn down a lot of opportunities to act in school. And I purposely only did, I think, 3 shows while I was in school as an actor so that I could focus more on directing. And like some of those shows I did because I knew that if I did them, I would be able to direct the next one. Like the only reason I was able to direct Jesus Christ Superstar was because I was previously in the musical the year before. And so I got in with the crowd. And so I'm still going to have to learn how to be able to manage all of the things that I'm wanting to do. And right now I'm getting a lot out of being able to be the artistic director of Living Light, and that's like the main thing that I'm looking at. But I think that one of the times that I had to learn how to be able to do both was actually while we were doing Hunchback. Because, Mary, I'm sure you remember, we were looking at different dates that we were going to be able to do the show. And we initially said January, and that was back in I think April when we first said that we were going to do the show, or maybe it was later, but it was once
we said August, and then we realized that that was dumb. And then decided on right. January.
So push it back, and we were like, our plan was let's do the workshop in September and then the show in January. And then we realized as we got closer to January that one of the things that happens in January is rain, like a lot of rain. And so
cold.
Cold. And the entire time that we were getting ready for the show, we would show up and my actors would be like, yeah, but Austyn, what are we going to do if it rains? And I would be like, that's the one thing that I personally can't do anything about. So don't. But the other reason that we were looking at moving it, to April, was because I was cast in a show up in
LA. Yeah.
And so I had to be able to balance all 3 things, and that's the only time I've ever had to do that. And it was 3 full-time jobs. Because while I was living in LA rehearsing the show, and I would call
we had these long conference calls.
Or my roommates, Pete or Cody or Jerry, my assistant director, every night. Like, if you guys didn't hear from me one night,
I was often worried.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just had to. While we were doing that, I had to make sure that I was learning or blocking enough of the scene to be able to start rehearsals, because we were going to have to start rehearsals when my show was up. And luckily for me, I was doing a children's show. So we would have 2 shows in the morning, and I would be done by noon up in LA, and I would be driving home. And then I spent a lot of my driving time making calls as the artistic director. And it was funny, like, because I was doing so much stuff for Hunchback, I did most of my rehearsing for the show I was doing in the rehearsal room. Like, that's when I learned most of my lines. And that is something I've never done. I'm always the guy who goes home and goes over the blocking of what I did. And it was the only time I'd felt overwhelmed while being in a rehearsal process, which is funny because it was a 90-minute show. You know, it was, no, gosh, it was so much shorter than that. It was like a 50-minute show. It wasn't even an hour. It was something that children would come and see. But like, my character would never leave the stage. And so I would be in rehearsal learning, and then as soon as I would leave rehearsal, I would turn off Alexander and the Great, Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, and I would often, once we were in shows, I would finish the show, and I would get in the car, and I would call whoever I needed to call about making sure we got the lights or the set or the costumes, and then by the time I would get home from my 2-hour, 3-hour commute, I would have to start rehearsal. And then the next morning I would wake up at 5 and I would drive. And so it was really interesting having to do all 3 of those. And
I still don't know how you did it.
and I think the only way that I was able to do it was honestly by having passion for all the things that I was into. If any of those things I was going, maybe I could just not do this today. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Have gone up, and I'm taking solace in the fact that now that we've opened the show, I can hopefully not have to be a director and an artistic director at the same time as often. I can be the artistic director and get, you know, Mary to direct a show for me or something, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, and a lot of these shows that we're wanting to do coming up, I'm like, yeah, cool, let's find something else. Because
we lost you again, your image. But Jennifer would like to know, what age range is Living Light Theater for? Do you mean who can audition for it, or who's the target audience? Jennifer? Oh, both.
Both? Okay.
Who can audition and who does it target?
Anyone can audition. It's definitely dependent on what the show is that we're doing.
So no little kids auditioning for like cabaret.
Right, exactly. I would read our breakdowns for auditions. We put out like age ranges and character types and stuff whenever we have that. But one thing that we've been floating, and maybe some of your students on here can tell me what you guys think of that, but we've been thinking about maybe like a year from now doing a summer camp type thing. Doing a show through that. But the shows, my intention is to have every show be for everyone. Every show that I will direct, I want anyone to be able to come and see. That's why, like, Hunchback has dark themes, but it never got so dark that,
it was still family friendly.
Yeah, it was. And I think that that's something that was a decision that we kind of had to accept when we decided that we wanted to do site-specific theater, because it's the type of theater that anyone can walk up and see. Because it's often outside, it can't be something that has a bunch of.
Can't always control the audience, so we don't want something inappropriate, and then some families walking by and they're like.
Yeah, I think that there are reasons that I often like to try and find the ways to get whatever the moral of a story is across without having to use shock value or any of those types of things. But yeah, if there is a show that we do that is not for everyone, it will explicitly say it many times. Because I typically, when the shows that I direct, I like to do shows that show the positive traits of the world, And Hunchback of Notre Dame was a dark show, but I don't think anyone walked away from it feeling depressed or feeling, even with the darkness, like there was anything for despair, even though we did it after the actual cathedral caught fire. I think that, you know, we were able to find the hope through it. And so because of that, it's very much theater by everyone for everyone.
Lovely. I have another kid. We have like 7 minutes left, so this has to be a quick answer. Where do you see your theater in 20 years?
Oh, 20 years. Oh, no, I'm the type of guy who can't see past like 5 years.
One, then you might not have an answer.
Honestly, moving to New York is something that's still in the cards for me, but I started Living Light as a San Diego-based theater company, and even if we do things in other places, I want to stay San Diego-based. So I see a future where like it's still run by me as the artistic director, but I come in like in 20 years, we're saying, like I'll come in once to do a show once a year. And other than that, I will be able to like lead it from afar and be able to leave to go do other projects and come back and make sure that that's something that I never would have considered before we got our team, that I was able to like fully trust with Hunchback. And I was like, oh, I could leave these guys everything for a year, and I would come back and it would be better than when I left it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would say the same. I'm very much like Austyn. I control, but during this process, we all had to learn to delegate. Yeah. I had to admit, I was like, Austyn, I can't do this by myself. I have to bring on backup. It was the best decision, I think.
And even in really trying times like this that are really hard for most theater companies, like we are honestly really lucky that we are so small in a way, because we don't have any employees that we have to lay off. We don't have any, you know, we don't have a theater because we do site-specific theater, so we don't have to worry about paying rent for that. And the one show that we like the rights to, they're letting us hold off. So we're going to come back from this stronger than ever and hopefully be able to just keep building.
That actually quickly leads me to the next question, another question. So this person wants to know, as a director and an artistic director, how are you doing those things while at home? I think in COVID is just sort of implied.
It's been really hard because we are all about live personal connection. And I personally am all about live personal connection. So being home all day has been driving me crazy. But
oh bueno.
But we've been finding whatever things that we can do to help the theater community. So like one of the things that we've been doing is once a week we've been having readings, not for like audiences, but we've been having readings for people to be able to come in and like for new playwrights will submit their plays, and if they need to hear their work read, we'll get a group of professional actors. And so that's a way that we can make sure that theater isn't dying out while this is all going on, so that there are shows that are like ready to jump in and start again once COVID ends, and once the quarantine ends. And another thing that we're doing that I think is really smart is that one of the next shows that we were looking at was 35mm, which was, we were going to have a bunch of artists listen to the songs in the show and do artwork, like professional artists. And I open that up to anybody and everybody to listen to the songs, listen to the show with all of their free time during quarantine to listen, pick a song, make a piece of art that inspires them. Actually, that might be something that some of you guys can do if you want to, like, if any of you are artists and want to listen to, there's this cool show called 35mm. If you listen to any of the songs and want to do like a piece of art that's inspired by it, if you send that to us, we will hang it up on the wall featured in the show once quarantine ends. So those have been the ways that we've been, like, the little ways we've been trying to make sure that theater's still alive even through all of this.
Well, thank you. I think that's actually, unfortunately, all the time we have. But thank you, Austyn. Thank you, Austyn.
So much fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. And thank you, everybody who joined us. And thank you, everybody who's coming later. Jennifer says thank you. And I know that there's a big crowd of you who are joining us later. So is it okay, Austyn, if kids have questions or if adults have questions, anybody has questions, can they reach out to me and then I pass it on, or
that would be fun.
Yeah, so if you have questions that you want to ask of him, email me. Y'all have my email. And I will pass it on to Austyn, and I'm sure that he will have a wonderful answer for you. And thank you, Austyn, again for doing this for us.
Yeah, this was so much fun.